I don't believe you get anything you can handle. So if it's in your life, whatever it is you're handling, whatever so-called things are thrown at you, and same thing, I believe, that's my belief, anything which is thrown at me, it means I can handle it, even if it looks hard and even if some things are challenging. But you start with small things. And again, you build on it, you build a muscle, like you build in the gym, and you grow from there.
Welcome back to another episode of the Peak Performance Life podcast. This episode is actually the third time we are having this guest on, because he's a very special guest, a very good friend of mine, someone who I enjoy spending time with as a friend, catching up with, and also someone who I look up to tremendously when it comes to health and spirituality and just all around better living. So we have Yuli back on the podcast. Thank you for coming back here, Yuli.
Hey, Taylor, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Amazing. So actually this one, we just meant to catch up. Yuli and I, we like to catch up at least every few months, hopefully even more frequently than that. But I said to him, hey, would you mind if we record? Because I find whenever we catch up, we're always like talking about really interesting stuff with regards to health and spirituality. I'm always interested in what Yuli has to say. So I figured this could be like a fireside chat without the fireside. And people can listen in and kind of listen into what two entrepreneurs / biohackers / people who are very into personal development and spirituality talk about when they catch up. So I think it could be fun.
Sounds fun.
Awesome. So yeah, actually, I was about to ask you right before we started the recording, and I said, hey, wait, let me hit record. I was going to ask you, what have you been up to and learning about, both in terms of health and spirituality? And I think for you, they're kind of almost related.
Spirituality is really related and connected to everything to me. Yeah, I mean, the last 5 months, I actually traveled to 7 countries exactly. So it was very interesting for me from a health perspective, how to take care of myself and actually feel great despite all the challenges you're having in a very, very intense period. So the learnings are more not necessarily through a book or a course, but it's just like by the habits or the micro changes I keep adding up to my routines and my days. And I would say the same is from spirituality in terms of, the spirituality is like your internal energy, really, what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, how you're doing it. You can do 2 same actions, but feel internally very different. You can do the same action with love, you can do the same action with total fear. Even though on the outside, it can be the same action to the external. So it's really coming back to your internal world, basically, what you're experiencing inside versus so-called what you're experiencing outside. So yeah, lots of things happening in my life. We can dive into many things, but that's kind of the
I like what you said that. I like what you said there about about internal, like you can do things, but internally kind of how you're feeling, how you're thinking about it can determine, and it's something I caught recently that I actually learned from some personal development and stuff that I was studying, was like, what even prior to the feeling while you're in the moment, even before that, I realized that I was having certain expectations before something would happen. And then of course it's going to play out kind of how your belief system and expectation, and then I was like, oh, and then once this person made me realize this, like, I was like, oh man, like there's so many times where I'm just like thinking to myself, like, oh, this is going to be so annoying that I have to do this, or this phone call I have to make to this, whatever is going to, and then it's like, yeah, of course it's going to be annoying if I'm already making that decision before I even do it. Like, it's not. So I was really glad that I was able to make that distinction. And now I'm trying to catch myself as much as possible whenever I'm thinking like, oh, I don't really, I don't want to do, like, things I know I have to do it anyway. So you may as well make the most of it,
Yeah, I think, tell me how it is for you, but when you run a business and you have employees and you have teammates, nothing will ever run 100% exactly to your expectations, basically. When you're in the woods alone and meditating and sitting in front of a tree and seeing the beauty of nature, then yeah, everything will be easier. So it's a great practice ground, how to be joyful nonetheless, but still do the hard decisions that a business person needs to do from internal perspective. So removing those expectations is really, really important. And, but the small things make the big difference. Like what you said in terms of catching yourself, if I do go even slightly towards having some expectations, or for me, I call those fear emotions. You can judge, you can do anything under those categories. It can be simple things for me. It's like taking a quick breath immediately. You can do it everywhere in the world. I can do it right now with you. I can do it when I'm sitting with a person. Just like stand still. You don't have to do anything dramatic with your body. It's just like you take a deep breath. You can do something with your body, and you just bring yourself back, basically, to yourself. And from there, you will act usually much wiser, and you'll say much better things, and you'll think much better thoughts automatically, regardless of the situation. And you'll
Yeah.
probably put better things into your body automatically as well, in terms of what to decide, how much to eat, and what to do on your physical body. It's all connected.
Yeah, absolutely. Being more present, more aware, and not just being reactive, right? Not eating when you're reactive, and being really aware. Yeah, like you said, you might eat less, you might make different eating decisions, you might make different decisions in many different areas if you're really being conscious of it, and not just kind of going with whatever the conditioning or reactiveness is doing.
Responding is key. I mean, what you said even about eating, the more I respond and listen to my body, one thing I've done the last 6 months, I actually shifted the time I finish eating much earlier. So I stop eating nowadays around between 2 to 3 p.m. I'm done.
Wow.
So, and by the time I go sleeping, I have between 7 to 10 hours of rest from my body, basically. So I sleep much better. It's liberating me in terms of even thinking about food, and I eat slower. I eat less food as well, but it's coming kind of connected maybe to spirituality, just from being more present to my body. It's
Mm.
less, it's going very much against the social norm. And actually, it's very tough for me socially, because when I'm with people, people are used to eating maybe 6, 7, 8 p.m. And for me, it's actually becoming hard to eat at that time, because I'm already used to finishing eating just very, very early in the day and eating maybe smaller quantities, appropriate to what I feel I need. But it's happening because I can be more present. And when I'm not present, it's like over easier. I can eat it later, overeat. But when it's there, you also take care of your body immediately, and you just kind of know what needs to be done. I have no need for a coach or a person to tell me. Like when I'm in that zone, I just know what I need to do. Like we all know how to take care of ourselves deep internally without someone telling us.
Amazing. Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. I need to maybe try something new there. I'm finding that I'm not eating. I don't like to eat much, like early, like in the mornings. I just don't feel like eating much. And then and then what happens is, especially if I'm weight training, and then I get very, very hungry later in the day. And then, yeah, but I don't like eating big meals like while I'm still in the middle of the day working. And then I end up eating like making up for my lost not eating all day, more at night. Not like super late, but like you said, like a 7 p.m. or something like that even. So that's interesting. What does your normal like eating habits or day look like in the mornings and through lunch or whatever?
I rarely eat breakfast. Sometimes when I'm traveling in a hotel, I may eat it, but it's on a very rare side. A typical day, I would either eat once or twice. And if it's twice, just because I finish eating between 2 to 3 on a typical day, my first meal will be maybe 12. So it's very like this. The window between when I finished eating and started eating is very, very small. And the meals are not big for the most part. It's like a
Mm.
fairly smaller meal. I simply spend more time chewing the food and eating much slower, and I just feel much more fuller versus eating very quickly and finishing the meal very quickly. So I rarely have breakfast. I do love drinking coffee in countries where coffee is growing, or those regions around it. And then I may eat, and again, depending on the weather and the country. So as I said, I just traveled to 7 countries, and it's interesting. I adjusted my diet very differently in each country, each region, depending what's growing. So it's very, very adjustable. So it can be different, but overall, I would finish eating. Like today, I finish eating at like 3 p.m., an hour before right now when we're talking, and I'm done. The rest of the day, I'll just drink tea, basically. Will I do something else here and there? Yeah, absolutely. It's not about perfection, but I'm just not really hungry. It's not about that I'm gonna open the fridge, and you don't get there in one day. It's something I think you also have to build up to. So it's not necessarily meaning I would have to recommend everyone finishing it too. It's something that works for me, basically, based on where I am. And yeah, so for the rest of the day, all I'll do for today, for example, I'll just drink tea. And because the meal was not too big, I have energy. I mean, I don't really have tiredness right now, which I would absolutely have if I would have a big meal at this time. And that could not work for me. And I am spending a considerable amount of time working, thinking, spending in terms of computer. So it helps me to combine being productive and also eating. So that's a typical day, I would say, in terms of.
Interesting. What are some of your go-to meals when you do eat? What are some of your go-to meals? I know. I imagine you're still kind of. I don't know if paleo is the right word, but you're not. I'm pretty sure you're not eating like bread and pasta and sugars or anything like that. I think pretty safe to say, right?
No bread, no pasta, no sugars. Typical meals for me would be maybe a bit of cheese if it's the first meal with coffee. Very little, and I don't combine with anything. And for the meal, my meals are very simple. It's a salad and some form of protein, and it could be also just egg yolks. If I had cheese, maybe I don't need more protein, so I just do egg yolks because it may be too much protein for me. And I have very limited amount of vegetables I eat. It's lettuce, avocado, cucumber, broccoli. And that's it. I really have 5 vegetables I stick to. Very simple diet. I find that actually when I combine things less, the body actually digests it much more. That's it. That's very, very simple. I could eat here and there nuts very rarely. I do, you can call it paleo, I guess, based on the definition of paleo. I did start adding here and there some carbs as dessert. So when I was in Israel, I would eat a date. But it's growing in the region, and I don't eat many dates. I eat one small date after a meal, or in Thailand, I would eat a banana or a mango. In India, you have to survive on rice. You can be paleo or keto in India. I've been in India as well for 2 weeks.
Really? Why is that? Why do you have to eat rice in India?
Because everything is rice there. If you haven't been there, you can find protein there. You can find meat there in India as well. They don't really eat it. And they have very high air pollution. I'm naturally not craving any protein. So I think it's very hard on the kidneys, to be honest. So I naturally, and actually rice is going there. I think rice was actually taking some of the toxins out, and I was eating rice every day. So it's their typical diet. Everything is consistent of rice in India. You can't get around it. It's breakfast, lunch, or dinner on like a typical Indian diet. So I adjusted.
Interesting.
Doesn't feel like very typical things.
Yeah, and for those that didn't maybe listen to the previous episodes with Yuli, he had, I'll just kind of give the quick summary. He had some health challenges, obviously many years ago. And he's, as many of us who have had health challenges many years ago, maybe we are just more sensitive than other people to certain things. And when you do, you can feel the difference when you eat a certain way versus another way. And so I think Yuli's one of the people that I think is probably the most in tune out of anyone I know, maybe in terms of, eating a certain way and also eating in a very specific way that's very healthy. And so it seems like one of the new themes that you're saying is that wherever you go, you're trying to eat more like in season with foods that are grown nearby, right?
You said it rightly. I'm doing it partially not from a logical perspective, but just from the maybe intuitive, seeing what I really want and crave. But yeah, it's definitely, I would say, dependent on weather. Then it's dependent on the country, what's in season, what's growing there. It could also depend on your activity. Are you lifting weights 4 hours in the gym every day, or are you right now meditating for days, or am I working like in my business, and am I doing maybe thinking activity, which is really, so there are many factors which go into it. Maybe it's not really talked enough. So just a few examples. When I was in Thailand, I didn't eat any cheese in Thailand. I couldn't. It was too tough for me. But I was eating coconuts. Coconuts are growing there. They have the best coconuts in the world. Then I didn't eat cashews for a few years. And then in India, I somehow looked at cashews. I can't explain it. Like, I just wanted it. And apparently I opened Google, and cashews are growing literally right in front of the city where I was eating it. And in United Arab Emirates, I ate walnuts. Not much, but I ate it. And usually I don't really eat it. I can say it's a typical part of my daily routine. So those are small kind of changes. The salad I mentioned is pretty typical. But if it's colder, I may actually want more protein. As an example, I've just been in Turkey and it was colder there. So I did eat most of the time 2 times, and then combining it 1 time. But I did have a bit more protein, for example. Right now in Panama, it's very sunny here. I naturally can't have much protein here. I just feel heavy if I will, and I just eat maybe egg yolks, for example. I still need my animal foods, but it's fat for the most part. Or if I do coffee, I'll do coffee with butter and 1 meal, and I'm done. And I don't need more food, actually. I just feel unnecessarily heavy. So yes, it's very much, I would say, in season, depending what's growing around.
Wow.
I think it's one of the best ways to go. Yeah.
Wow. When you say egg yolks, is that raw? Are you cooking them at all, or are you?
I'm cooking. I don't do raw.
Okay.
I'm cooking my eggs.
And not the egg whites. You don't. Do you cook? Do you just crack the whole egg and eat the yolks and the whites together, or you eliminate the white?
It depending where I am. If I don't need more protein, I shifted a lot to doing just egg yolks many days. Especially if 2 hours ago I made some cheese. It's enough protein for my body. It depends on my activity, but yeah, many days I do just egg yolks.
Wow.
But again, it's very dependent. It can change if I'm in another country, another region. And it was interesting for me just because I changed many countries last 5 months. It was for me even amazing. Every country I go, it's like something is changing. Yeah.
That's very cool. That's very cool. It's so interesting because like I know some of my friends who are like, they learned about health in the 80s and they're still eating egg whites and eliminating the yolk. It's kind of funny how things are kind of backwards many cases. And the same thing with the cheese, right? I remember when you and I were hanging out at one time at an event, and I think we had for a meal, like you had avocados and like some like organic pasture raised cheese or something like that, right? And it was a great meal. But again, everyone, like when I say cheese, people are like, oh no, cheese is no good. And yeah, maybe like, obviously some conventional processed cheese or whatever obviously is not good. But can you explain to people, why do you think like egg yolks and some good organic pasture raised cheese is actually healthy, and why do people villainize these things, do you think?
Well, first of all, if you study science, then one thing which was true 25 years ago may easily be wrong today. There could be many examples, whatever the subject which you want to go into. So I'm not necessarily following the scientific review that said that this is good and this is bad. Furthermore, I'm not saying I'm recommending someone to eat what I do. I know it's working for me. I think it's a very important distinction, because on some days I may do something else, or in a certain country, and maybe someone else or a different body may need something else. I'm just sharing what intuitively I know is right for me. In terms of egg yolks and cheese, first of all, if I don't have access to good food, I'll fast. I can fast 24 hours, 48 hours. It's not a big deal for me. So when any food I eat, I'll make sure it's organic, it's local. And if it's cheese, it's only pasture raised, it's organic. And same thing for the eggs. And if I don't have access to something which I consider clean or good, I'll fast. And it's not a big deal for me. Why people vilify it, I don't think I can answer the question, because as I said, science is changing so much. And if you go right now to Google, you'll find probably 20 articles saying why the egg yolks are bad, and you'll find 20 articles saying why it's good as well.
Yeah.
So I'm not here to say that it is good or bad necessarily.
Yeah.
I know it is working for me. In general, I do believe it is something you want to clearly include, but for someone else, maybe they need more of or less of, not necessarily excluding everything. I hope that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And yeah, eggs are also one for me where I don't really know or care what the science says. I know when I eat my eggs with a little bit of the Celtic salt and olive oil, I feel great. I feel very nourished. I feel like I'm getting great protein, great healthy fats, and I feel really good. So yeah, I really like this theme. And we talked about it last time, I think, when you were on, a little bit about intuitive eating and things like that. What about for the normal person? Normal person, like the because I think like what you're saying, like for like sometimes we don't realize it, but like
I
the
understand.
the average person would be thinking like, man, like I'm hungry. How can he not eat after 3 o'clock? Or how can he just fast? Or how can it be so easy for him to just not eat or something like that? Do you have any explanation for that?
I think it's something you build step by step. So for whoever is listening, depending what you can do, I didn't get there in one big jump. I think it's very safe to do something step by step. So if you could fast 12 hours, start there. Probably that's where I was. I wasn't really calculating. If you can go from 12 to 13, you don't really notice a difference. But go from 13 to 14, it's one thing. Then maybe for a while you do 16, get used to it. Once you get used to it, once you get used to anything, it becomes easy. Once you've done 124-hour fast and it's safe and you didn't crash and you didn't die, maybe you can do a bit longer. So I think regardless of where you are, if you're listening, I think the step-by-step process is important. Like if you've never fasted, yeah, don't do a 5-day water fast. I would not recommend it at all. I would do something much more gentle and do something which is aligned with where you are and a fit for you. I do think in general drinking hot teas is good. So if
Hmm.
initially I was feeling hungry, just hot liquid. Sometimes you're actually just wanting some liquid and you want some water. You're not really hungry. So even if you're hungry, I can try drinking some liquids
Mm-hmm.
or hot liquids or teas in the evening or teas in the morning. That's definitely a general advice which I think can apply for anyone. Second of all, yeah, I think it's okay to be hungry. I mean, we actually have abundance of food, and most of our issues, I believe, in the world is not from real hunger, not in the developed world. I've traveled in many places where they really have financial issues, but in there is no hunger. I don't see hunger anywhere. I've been in many parts of the world. So for me, even if I do feel hunger, sometimes I just accept it. Like, I'm not saying it is wrong to be hungry and then I have to eat. As long as, of course, I did eat before, I know what my body needs. So, yeah, I just think the step-by-step process is the most important. Just kind of
Yeah.
slowly changing things. I remember when I saw you a few years ago in one of the events, and we were talking about tomatoes, for example. So I was still eating tomatoes at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So as an example, it's one thing you step at a time. And I think it was shortly after that time, I actually cut tomatoes from my diet. So I don't eat tomatoes anymore. And it was just like, hey, I was doing something for a quarter. And then the next quarter, I stopped having tomatoes. But when you end the year, all of a sudden, there are no tomatoes. Now, in this 5 month period, for example, I didn't eat a single tomato, I think, anywhere.
Yeah.
Because I feel it's not aligned with me because of the lectins and the seeds which you have in the tomatoes. It just doesn't go, and I just feel much better. So I think really this habit stacking, which you can apply for health, and then really you can apply for anything else.
Yeah, I really like what you said. I mean, that's really a really great mindset shift or reframe. I think it's a real golden nugget if people can really listen to it and accept what you said. It's like, well, it's okay to be hungry. It's a really good. It's a very simple point and a very powerful point. Like, I'm just accepting. Hey, I'm hungry. That's okay. I'm not going to die. Actually, it's healthy for me if I fast a little longer, and I'm okay. And you can just do it, right? Like it's a great point. I like that.
Yeah, now we have to also question if it's real hunger, because people who fast and have done different fasts, you may go for a 3-hour period when you're hungry, And then after those 3 hours, you may not be hungry anymore. And many people who made any kind of fasting know it's true because that's how our body is. So the question is, were you really hungry? How is it possible your body really craved food? Let's say 2 p.m., whatever. 5 p.m., what? That's it? You're done? You didn't eat anything and you're good? So you really have to question. And I do think for the most part, it's not real hunger because there's so much abundance of food right now. That's not really the lack we're having nowadays.
Yeah. Let's see. What else I want to ask you? Are you traveling you're traveling to so many different countries just to kind of see the world and see new places?
Kinda, yeah. I'm moving to Canada, as I told you, in about a month. So before I'm kind of settled in one place for a few years. So I had this opportunity to travel. I clearly worked a lot. There are challenges when you do it, obviously. But yeah, it was just partially to see the world, understand the world better. A mixture of like I met my people and my team as well in my business. So there were a mixture of different places I flew, but yeah, just seeing the world and kind of doing a few months of intense travel before I'm kind of settling on this.
Nice. I wanted to ask you, like, when we mentioned the tomatoes, I know there's a lot of other so-called healthy foods that you don't eat for whatever reason. I guess there is a reason, and it's usually, something to do with how it affects your body or inflammation or things like that. But what are some of the common ones? I know tomato, maybe some people have heard of. What are some other ones that are very common that you see a lot of people think are healthy foods, but many times they can cause issue? And I know it's different depending on the person, but things that you avoid maybe.
I personally avoid kale, spinach as well, eggplants, really anything in the lectin category.
So kale and spinach, why those? And spinach, isn't it okay if you cook it, or
It is better because I believe they have oxalates.
right?
From the scientific explanation is they have oxalates, and the oxalates irritates your gut basically. And yes, when you do cook it, it will remove a big percentage of those. So if you are going to eat spinach and kale, I would absolutely recommend to cook it. I think eating it raw is going to be a bigger problem for the stomach. But even then, after you cook it, it is still there to a certain degree. So for me, I just like avoid those completely. I can't remember the last time I had either spinach or either kale. But if I'm going to have them, it's going to be cooked. Yeah.
And your broccoli that you eat a lot, do you cook that too?
I cook my broccoli. My broccoli and my carrots I cook. I don't eat them. Those are the main two cooked vegetables I have, and cauliflower, but I can't have it every day. So cauliflower and pulsing.
And you always cook because it's interesting. There's different opinions on this. Some people say, oh, if it's raw, then you get more of the nutrients. For me, I feel when it's cooked, like especially like a broccoli or carrots, right? Like eating them raw compared to eating them cooked just feels much easier on my body.
Yeah.
I can't explain.
Same thing. Yeah. Like that's the simplest thing. How does your body feel? Do you feel lighter or heavier? Like a very simple question. You don't need to. If you feel heavier, it doesn't matter what others are saying. Don't eat it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you said so kale, spinach, eggplant. And then what about like beans and grain? I get things like that.
In general, I don't eat beans. If I'm out in some restaurant I'm eating and there are beans, I may eat a little. So I don't exclude it completely altogether, but here and there, very rarely, maybe I'll have a little beans. But in general, it's not a staple or a typical. Very rarely I would have beans. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go back to some more of the kind of like spiritual practices or things that are not necessarily just related to food that you're doing in your life right now that you think are having a big impact. What are some things you are doing maybe on a daily or weekly basis that you feel are having a positive impact on your life?
There are a few habits which I am doing, which definitely are going to serve my spiritual growth. So one thing I added, I think, in the last 6 months is daily breath work, for example. Again, small habit, as I mentioned. I was not doing breath work before. I'm definitely not a breath work expert. I do need to get better there. But I did some training here and there, and then I decided to add just 5 minutes in the morning. And I believe it is for you as well. The same, my morning is the time I kind of set myself up for the day. So breath work, intense breath work, or even 5 minutes in the morning just really helps you. And it's free. It's easy. You can do it anywhere in the world. So I like things which I can do everywhere. Like I'm not relying. If I'm in a hotel room, I'm traveling for whatever reason. Lots of visualizations. So I've done the silver course method technique.
Oh, nice. I have heard of it. I haven't done it, but you liked it?
I do like it. You bring your brain to like beta waves, basically. And then you visualize things in the core. Really. So it works based on visualization. So, and I do find it a powerful spiritual practice because you visualize what you want to create. And we're all powerful creators. So whether you want to create better health, whether you want to create money, whether you want to create a certain partnership, whatever it is, like visualizing it and then actually being able to do it. So I've been doing, I really love the Silva method. I do recommend doing. I've done the Mind Valley course. So that's where I kind of learned about it. I think over 6 months ago.
Yep. The Silva method, Mind Valley. I think if people Google that, they will find it. I've heard about it quite a bit. I know they've had a lot of really good feedback on that one.
Yeah, that's where I learned it. I read the book as well, but I actually like Mind Valley more. It was kind of more the actual practical of how to practice it on a daily basis. I think as we talked in our last talks, I mean, I do daily yoga, I do daily meditation, I have my vision board, I have different reminders. So I just spend a good amount of time in the morning and in the evening kind of doing stacking different kind of habits and routines, which really help me set myself up for the day and help me going to sleep. So I think those are the most important thing. If you ask any person what are their habits, what are routines, I'm sure if I'll do it with you or anyone else, you will learn very much about their results in different areas of life. If you ask someone what are their health routines, you will know how to. If you ask what are your other routines, you may know how much that person may earn potential. It's all really connected to the daily small things you are doing, at least for a certain period, even if you're changing those. So yeah, I think it's just my morning routine, my evening routine, and for me, really, business is the perfect spiritual evolution because as we started talking initially, it's really what I feel inside, and the energy and the emotion I'm feeling. Because let's say I need to fire someone, just an example. It's the worst thing like has to be done, but as a leader of a business, sometimes I have to do it, and I'm the one who has to take a hard decision. Now I can do it out of love, but I still do it.
Yeah.
Or I can do it out of anger or emotion. Like it doesn't mean necessarily you don't go and act in the world. Basically. For me, it's all about acting in the world, but it's also all about what am I feeling inside? Where's my energy? How am I feeling? So that's like the most powerful. And this is something you live every second, every day, regardless of what you're doing. I know I'm interested in business because I'm running businesses, but it's really about any person you interact. You can interact with your wife or your husband, and you can say the same thing. You can be loving inside. You can say the same thing from an anger perspective. So again, it's not about what you do. It's about what you feel in your internal world. And then, yes, combine it with the right action outside. I think that's for me is like the biggest spiritual growth because it really impacts everything I do and it can impact anything else everyone doing. It's all about those day-to-day things. You're sitting in the car, someone is there. Very, very simple thing. Are you going to get angry? Or are you going to be blissful nonetheless, even if you need to sit down for an extra 5-10 minutes? But you practice in the simple things. Because if you can't really win with the car, you're probably not going to do heavier things. And I think what's beautiful here is you only get in life what you can handle, basically. I don't believe you get anything you can handle. So if it's in your life, whatever it is you're handling, whatever so-called things are thrown at you, and same thing, I believe, that's my belief, anything which is thrown at me, it means I can handle it, even if it looks hard and even if some things are challenging. But you start with the small things. And again, you build on it, you build a muscle, like you build in the gym, and you grow from there.
I love that mentality. I love that. Yeah, anything that's in your life, you can handle it. And what about like for someone who, and I'm asking this for myself as well as I'm sure for people listening, right? You're like, Okay. You know, like you said, you have to fire someone at work. You can do it from a place of love, or from a place of anger, or from a place of fear, or from a place of annoyance, or whatever it could be. Same thing talking to your significant other, right? Like saying something from a place of love or not. So what about, how do you I guess change your mindset or your state if you're in a certain state? Like if you I guess the first step is to actually try to catch yourself and be aware that you are thinking in a way that's not serving you, whether we call it negative or whatever, a way that's not serving you. And then so then you I guess that would be the first step. Maybe you have some tips or ideas around how people can actually become more aware of when they are thinking or feeling in a certain way that's not serving them. And then how can they maybe make a shift, do you think?
First of all, I'm definitely not perfect from a perspective. Like I'm definitely can still go to the other emotions, whatever it is. Everyone has their thing, whatever, anger, frustration, something which is so-called negative. So I do go there. Absolutely. I'm not perfect there. I'm just regularly going to the gym and building the muscle not to go over and stay on the other side much more. And if I do go over, the switch to the other side is simply much quicker. I'm not staying there. Like the time I'm maybe going there is very, very quick. I think there are a few things which I'm using, which probably many could use. So I think it's about catching yourself at that moment. It's really about catching that moment, and a simple thing of breathing. You can literally just breathe and hold your breath. That's a very simple technique. Just hold your breath, put your stomach.
So you'll breathe in through your nose and expand your stomach and then hold. Is that
correct? So I'll breathe in from my stomach, a very simple thing, and I would hold it. And you can do it anywhere. And if you can hold for half a minute, hold for half a minute. If you do for a minute, If you hold for 2 minutes, whatever you do. If needed, do it a few times. But just by doing it once, you immediately kind of shift back. You connect to yourself versus the mind or whatever the thoughts are going for the mind, basically. So just catching it and being aware is one of the first things. And let's say I am angry. So I can catch myself through this one simple technique of just breathing in. Just by doing it for 1 minute, my response is going to be way different if, let's say, I would write an email, respond to someone, jump on a call, if I did not do it.
Yeah.
You don't want to respond to anyone or talk to anyone if you're in this state. And one of the people which I know, I think is studying him as well, Tony Robbins, like he talks about state a lot. So really what is state? Physiology, language, focus. So it's really coming back to the basics, really, of like changing your state. Breath is one way. If you need to remind yourself something or ask yourself a powerful question. So I have all over my room different questions as good reminders. They're all over the room, all over the house, actually. And they serve as reminders. So in the moment, you can forget everything. But we all come to a place, I'm sure you do as well, when you're conscious. You understand what is the right thing, when you're responding, when you're reacting, when you're calmer. So designing powerful questions is very, very good, because questions direct your focus.
I love that. What are some of the questions that you're asking yourself? Or that you have as a reminder?
What will take me to the next level in my life? How can I add more love? Where is my focus at that time? Am I breathing? Like I have in front of my computer, just a reminder, not even a question, breathe first. Breathe. Anytime I'm so-called in not a good state, breathing will solve it. Like we need to breathe more, just deeply. How can I add value to other people? How can I add value to my people? How can I add value to life? So those are a few examples of questions which are all around my house. How can I take care of myself? How can I take care of others? So very simple things, just good questions to reshift yourself. But even if you're not sure, you look at it and it puts me back into state. So I think those are very simple things which I'm doing, which are free, anyone could do, and they're really helpful.
Yeah. I love that. And the questions are great. I look at questions every morning. Maybe I'll start putting them all up around my house as well.
What are some of your questions? which you ask everybody?
Yeah. So definitely, like, how can I inspire and help more people is one. I actually have a list of a lot of them. Some of them are to do with business. Some of them are to do like more personal. So like on the business side, one of the questions, and I think I got this one from Keith Cunningham, was like, if a new CEO was to come into your company, what would they do? Right. So that's more on the business side. On other questions might be like, what is the ideal version of yourself in 3 years or 5 years? Other questions might be, what are the things in my business that I don't enjoy doing and are draining my energy? And to become aware of those and try to outsource those to someone else. And what are the things that give me energy and that I enjoy doing? So yeah, those are some of them.
Nice. Great questions. I love Keith.
Yeah. I'll send you a list. I have actually, maybe you'll find some of them interesting. My friend actually originally gave me a list, and then I kept adding to it. And there's
a lot
of
list
questions.
Of powerful questions.
Yeah. I have a list of thinking time questions, we call it. So I'll send it to you right after. Maybe we'll put it in the show notes for everyone else too. Now that we spoke about it, I have to put it in the show notes too. It's personal a little bit, some of them, but no, it's something great to share. People in other mastermind groups that I've shared it with, they love it. So
nice.
That's cool. Well, great, man. I thank you so much for coming on again and sharing this amazing information. And then, I also like what you said about the state change also, right? So breathing is one thing, but the state change, like sometimes I notice like, I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling too much energy. I'm like not feeling a lack of energy. And I'll notice, yeah, because I'm sitting down slouched over looking at my phone or something, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, just stand up, posture up, do some things, do some yoga, do some, change my state, and it makes a big difference. So yeah.
I don't negotiate with my brain. I give it commands, basically.
I like that.
Because the brain is very naturally lazy. So I don't let my brain rule me. I rule my brain.
I like that. I love that. Well, Yuli, again, it's been another awesome episode, and hopefully we can keep doing it periodically, because I know people get value. I get value out of it. And so, is there anything that you want to promote or tell people about, or have them follow you?
I have nothing to promote. I'm not on social media, so I don't think I can be followed as well.
I appreciate that. You're coming from the goodness of your own heart to share your wisdom, and you have definitely done that. So thank you once again, my friend.
Yeah, you got it. Great catching up.
Thanks for listening, and just a reminder, if you haven't yet tried any of our Peak Performance products, you get 20% off your first order. We have one of the largest selection of USDA certified organic superfood powders, as well as very high quality supplements, and you get 20% off your first order at buypeakperformance.com. That's www.buypeakperformance.com.